The Olympics are probably the biggest sporting event we've ever had in the UK, and specifically in London. And one thing that people forget about the Olympics is how short it is. So the World Cup, which I know Brazil has just had, is a month long, and there are a lot of games at the beginning, and then there are fewer games as the Cup goes on, and it lasts 4 weeks. The Olympics is incredibly intense. It's just over 2 weeks, and there are 30 gold medals awarded every day on average. And it is like no other sporting event in terms of its intensity and news. And what you find is that people, particularly in this world of web platforms and on mobile and tablets, people will be watching the games all the time when the games are on, and you need to get the share of voice when that's available. During the games, it is incredibly intense, and people will be watching what goes on, and those messages will be much more difficult to convey. And then after the games, there'll be a moment where, if you have sponsored a team or a particular tranche of activity around the Olympics for a long time, and you are identified with that, you will have some form of ability to cash in on that once the games are finished, and you can say, look what we did, we were connected with this athlete, look what we did, we were connected with this event, look what we did, we were connected with the spectacle or some of the cultural and social stuff around the Olympics. So unless you have your strategy where you've worked through how you're going to own that space, how you're going to get that message home, and how you're going to capitalise on it after the games are over, you won't really have done your job commercially. The important things for those companies who have invested in the Olympics, either at a local level or as a global sponsor, is to be able to work out ways of owning that share of voice, owning that sponsorship early on, and making sure that people within those countries and those territories understand what their association is. There are examples, I think, with our London Olympics where there were companies who had quite significant investment at sponsorship level in the games who did not necessarily leverage that in a way that the public recognised it, as much as brands who may have advertised some way before and some way after the games. One of the things that we did when this happened to London was to do a series of deals in different areas, some of which had nothing to do with sport whatsoever. So one of the first big deals that we did was with Cisco, the computer company, and they wanted purely a presence in business to talk about how they were associated with the Olympics, and they built that from very early out. So we were starting that deal, I think, probably 2010, so 2 years before the games started. Much closer to the games, BT, which is the telecoms company in this country, sponsored the Cultural Olympiad. We had a big concert at the Thames with lots and lots of different stages and artists. We produced programs for that. We had in newspaper and on digital content for that, and that was purely about culture. One of our most effective sponsorships, I guess, was with British Airways, and one of the things they wanted to do was to be identified very strongly with Team GB. They wanted to support exactly the kind of content that we wanted to deliver to our readers and our audience online. They were around profiles of each of the athletes. They appeared in our special information resource in our iPad tablet edition. They appeared on the mobile web. And then in another, it's connected to the games, but again, there's a slightly different part of it. One of our banks, Lloyds TSB, were around the ticketing process and also sponsored the torch relay. So for the days from the spring to the summer where the torch was going around this country, we had in-paper and video and digital presence around that journey. One of the key things to remember is that the Olympics is clearly about sport, and sport is absolutely the core and the reason for it. It's a massive whole country, whole world event that has many different aspects to it. There's an enormous amount of business. There are more world leaders that come together than they do for any other event, and they all will converge on Rio for this moment. So the games, which you might think it's a sporting event, actually we had a number of relationships with a number of companies who were supporting different aspects of the games and also delivered value to those commercial companies who wanted to own their share of voice around the games. So the message is, think about it early. It feels a long time away. Everyone's still thinking about the World Cup because that's just happened, and looking back on that, it will be too late quite quickly. And unless there are really good plans in place, a year on from the World Cup and a year away from the Olympics, people will have lost the initiative.